On Tuesday night, hosting the Nixon seminar, chaired by former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, former National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien, and Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. The great man himself came out, so I will play a little bit of that, but I was up very late, and Colonel Kurt came in for me, and I appreciate it very much. And the studio's still smoking slightly, but it's always great to have Kurt in. Also smoking Mitch McConnell. He is on fire as he slices and dices the $1.9 trillion. It's a garbage bill. It's absolutely a dumpster on fire, and Mitch McConnell is taking it apart bit by bit. He remains the greatest legislative leader the Republicans have had in either house of Congress in my lifetime. Here's Mitch McConnell on the Senate floor yesterday, cut number 9.
What the American people need are fast-acting plans to get schools reopened now, get laid-off workers back into jobs, and finish the fight against this virus right now. The Democrats have instead drawn up a liberal omnibus to fund miscellaneous government spending over the next decade. So we're adding all this money to the national debt in the name of a rescue package, with most of the money being spent out far in the future. So, Mr. President, that's why there was bipartisan opposition over in the House. That's why aspects of the House bill are already dropping like flies before this thing even hits the Senate floor. A pet project for the San Francisco Bay Area, gone. Special upgrades for a bridge connecting New York to Canada, gone. Even CNN had to admit these were, quote, controversial, end quote. Senator Sanders' far-left minimum wage policy that would have killed 1.4 million jobs just as we try to recover, that appears to be gone too, at least for now. According to public reports, right now, as we speak, several of our Democratic colleagues are frantically trying to trim back other crazy provisions. The runaway government bailouts, the policies that will keep workers at home when we should be focusing on rehiring. Just a few days ago, President Biden's chief of staff bragged that this smorgasbord of borrowed money will add up to, quote, the most progressive domestic legislation in a generation, end quote. So that's what you get when the Democratic leader persuades all of my distinguished friends across the aisle that their first undertaking as Senate committee chairman should be to outsource all their gavels to the House.
He is just on fire. Then he went on Fox with Martha McCallum, Cocaine Mitch did, and summed up what the Biden team is doing for the Republican Party, cut number 7.
Well, look, I think the actions of the new Democratic administration are unifying the Republican Party. We've had some internal back and forth that has been widely covered, but nothing has unified the Republican Party in both the House and the Senate faster than reacting to this new left-wing administration. So we're looking forward. We're not going to look backward. We're looking forward, dealing with the problems America has today, not the problems it had yesterday. And as I said, I have sensed in our conference, and I think in the House Republican Conference as well, a new sense of unity, pulling together to oppose this left-wing administration.
Right. He also went on to talk about the burgeoning crisis at the border, and it's huge. Mitch McConnell, cut number 8 with Martha McCallum.
Beats me. Secretary Mayorkas, the head of the Homeland Security, says there's no crisis at the border. Well, that's absolutely incorrect. And the crisis was created by the administration sending a message to desperate people who want to come here that just hang on, you'll get in sooner or later. And, of course, the Mexican government then will become less cooperative. One thing the previous administration did an excellent job of, by any objective standard, was border security. And all of that is being undone very quickly in this new administration. They own this crisis at the border. They created it, and they could stop it if they chose to.
Now, I also want to point out, President Biden went out yesterday and blasted Texas Governor Abbott's policy on COVID. This is what he said. Cut number 10, making sure that Texas stays red for generations.
I think it's a big mistake. Look, I hope everybody's realized by now, these masks make a difference. We are on the cusp of being able to fundamentally change the nature of this disease because of the way in which we were able to get vaccines in people's arms. We've been able to move that all the way up to the end of May to have enough for every American, to get every adult American to get a shot. And the last thing we need is the Neanderthal thinking that in the meantime everything's fine, take off your mask, forget it. It still matters. I carry a card with me, I don't have it, I put it on my desk. As of yesterday, we had lost 511,874 Americans. We're going to lose thousands more. This will not occur. We'll not have everybody vaccinated until sometime in the summer. We have the vaccine to do it. Getting a shot in someone's arm and getting a second shot, you're going to take time. And it's critical that they follow the science. Wash your hands, hot water, do it frequently, wear a mask, and stay socially distanced. And I know you all know that. I wish the heck some of our elected officials knew it. So thank you very much.
So Texans are Neanderthals. Hey, Neanderthal Texans, what do you think about that? 1-800-520-1234. I know some Texas Neanderthals. I do. They root for the Aggies. I mean, they root for what do they call them? Horns? Hooked up horns? The hooked up horns down in Texas? I don't know. But John Cornyn, great senator, one of our favorite guests on the Hugh Hewitt Show, from Texas, former Supreme Court justice on the Texas Supreme Court, gave a presser right after Joe Biden insulted his state. Cut number 2.
President Biden has a lot of problems to take care of. He's got a crisis at the border that he calls a challenge and not a crisis, dismantling all of our immigration laws and protections to protect our border. And so I don't think he's got a lot to say about preaching to my state about how we've handled this COVID-19 virus. Part of the problem here that Senator Scott and others have pointed out is that many states have been overly restrictive in terms of opening the economy, safely going back to school and the like. And what they want, because they have not been able to meet their revenue needs, they want the federal government to bail them out. So I don't think Washington has a lot to say to states like my state about what the appropriate reopening measures are. And the fact of the matter is, if you want to wear a mask, you can still wear a mask. But at some point, the government needs to quit making arbitrary rules that do not have any demonstrable connection with the public health.
You know what's amazing? There's a story this morning in the New York Post that more than 100 illegal immigrants tested positive after they crossed into Texas, and they've been released. Positive coronavirus carriers. It's almost unbelievable. I also have a story about a terrible tragedy in California where a van packed full of undocumented. They pulled down a portion of the old fence. It looked like it was about 8 feet tall. It wasn't Trump's fence. They drove a van through, packed with 44 people, got hit by a semi, 15 are dead, many children. And you look at that old fence, you realize Dwayne could have pushed it over. Seriously, Dwayne could have done it. You could have leaned on it and pushed it over. And people don't want to build the fence. Now, notice that they had to pull it down to get through. You put up a good fence, they can't do that. Also want to bring your attention to the Honduras coronavirus. 172,000 cases. Now, this is underreported. Honduras is absolutely paralyzed, and they're out of food. So I have just tweeted out, and I'm urging you to go to hughhewitt.com and contribute to the Food for the Poor campaign that I run in March. Now, Food for the Poor sponsors this every March. I'm not obliged to contribute, but the fetching Mrs. Hewitt and I made the biggest contribution we've ever made to Food for the Poor this year because we know what coronavirus has done in Honduras. Shattered the economy, shattered relief programs. Millions of people, I believe it's more than 9 million people, are hungry. Many of them are starving. Hundreds of thousands of them are children. And Food for the Poor is on the case. They are sending the basic calories to survive and the clean water to survive. But they need every contribution. Could you please go to hughhewitt.com right now and step up and step in as much as you can, as early as you can today. Make it your Lenten sacrifice. HughHewitt.com, food for the poor, relief at the top. Come right back.